What's going on there, guys? Back with another one, and I want to talk about this on today as Gilbert Arenas has addressed Kwame Brown and some of the back and forth they've had over the years. I think the most recent thing was him selling his show to Underdog, right? Well, the YouTube channel itself, retaining the name, to start Gil's Arena again, and he's recruiting previous talent that was on the show that didn't necessarily make it over to the Underdog deal, and so he's looking to relaunch that in a couple months. But I want to look back at an article from ESPN before we get into what Gil said because it directly ties into some of the things he's addressing in the video. October 3rd, 2005. This is what the ESPN article says. It says, not long after saying he wanted to slap Gilbert Arenas, Kwame Brown gave him a call instead. Now, I know Kwame, if he sees this video, he'll be able to explain, exactly what happened and if the press misconstrued everything about the story. But let's continue. It says, Arenas said he got a phone call Sunday night from Brown, who offered an explanation for inflammatory comments that appeared in Sunday's Washington Post. He called me and said everything was misconstrued, and I accepted it. This is what he said in Media Day. This is what Gilbert Arenas was saying to the Wizards media. It says Brown, now with the Los Angeles Lakers, burned his Wizards bridges several times over in the Post interview, but his most severe accusation was aimed at Arenas. Brown told the paper that Arenas was to blame for Brown getting little playing time in Game 3 of the second round playoff series against the Chicago Bulls. The next day, Brown called in sick and missed practice. One day later, he was suspended for the rest of the playoffs. And this is a quote, I believe, from Kwame Brown. It says, the thing is, the whole thing stems from Gilbert telling them not to put me in the game. I didn't come to practice because I was going to be a distraction. I was going to slap him, Brown told the Post. I'll admit it. What I did was wrong. But I ain't saying what I would have done if I showed up would have been right. Being that I didn't show up, I didn't put my hands on nobody. How a teammate, a supposed friend, will go to a coach and tell him, don't put me in the game, I would have done something seriously wrong to him. And so it goes on to say Arenas and Coach Eddie Jordan both deny that Arenas had any influence on Brown's playing time in Game 3. At the end of the season, the Wizards traded Brown and LaRon Profit to the Lakers for Caron Butler and Chucky Atkins. Ended a disappointing 4-year tenure. Okay, so that's what it says. Now, this is what Gilbert said at the end of the article. He said, I was the one who was helping him out. But I guess he heard from somebody that I told Coach not to play him in Game 3. It wasn't like that. And so this is what Gilbert said in response to some of the things that him and Kwame have been saying back and forth. And I think Kwame has even addressed this on his lives, and it was one of his older lives. But I think he addressed that situation. I think they've spoken about it on lives together in the past, too. But let's check out what Gilbert had to say.
All the accusations that was made against me was actually not real. I wasn't the person that had him bench. I wasn't the person who had him bench and told the coach. That wasn't actually me. That story is, rest in peace, that was Kobe Bryant's thing. Kobe Bryant told Phil Jackson, put him on the bench, he's in my way. I don't know how I got put into that as the person who did that, but that wasn't me.
Okay.
So basically, once I realized all of this was fake and I didn't do anything, I dropped everything. I apologize for all the bullshit I brung into it and everything he did for me. It no longer exists. So even moving forward, anything he says, it has no bearing. He has a blanket of freedom to do whatever he wants if he needs to, because I don't have a problem. But I'm not gonna have fake beef turn into real beef. You remember, it was like this, and some people know. So I made a comment about the word pause, because someone wrote it in the chat, right? And then I think Cameron Mace, someone read it to them, or they did a thing, and it kind of thought I was talking about them the way they set it up.
Yeah.
So they went on the thing, and I think they just killed me. right? I didn't respond to it, nor did I watch it because I wasn't talking about them. I was talking to my chat. So I said, you're only responding because of the way it was set up and you think that is. I can't take that response and say I'm offended by this response because the only way you made this response is because of what was presented. See, what was presented is fake. So that means now the response is fake.
Okay.
It's irrelevant.
All right.
So now I don't have no, you know what I mean? Like it does, it's irrelevant to me. So all the words that you said, who gives a fuck what it was? It's irrelevant. And that.
So I remember when the back and forth first started, I remember Kwame telling Gilbert Arenas, "I don't want you talking about me, period." And when I read that article, it gives a little more clarity and takes me back. I remember some of this stuff being in the news, but you remember that stuff. You saw it on Sports Center. It wasn't just readily available, as easy to access on the internet as it is today. But I remember him saying he don't want him saying anything about him, and some people was looking at it like, man, he compared you to AD, said you had guard skills and all that type of stuff, and it was true. You know, Kwame was fast. His high school All American game with all those future NBA players, you could go see it right here on YouTube. His highlights and how dominant he was. He was great in workouts against Tyson Chandler, and I believe it was Eddie Curry, if I'm not mistaken. But and in summer league highlights, right? But you get drafted to the wrong. A lot of times in the NBA, situations are everything. It ain't so much difference in talent, against these elite players. You look at Kwame; he came in with a body that was ready to compete out of high school. And you think about Dwight Howard, somebody like that getting drafted to Orlando as the franchise guy, and they were going to let him be the franchise player and develop him as such. You just have to wonder, right? If Kwame came out a couple years later and was drafted to Orlando, how would his career have gone? He still had a successful career, but I'm saying a team that would have believed in him as the number one pick that he was, gave him the resources, gave him the opportunities to showcase that skill set, not being on a Wizards team where Jordan wanted his guys, and it was very clear that he wanted his guys, and he was still in his Michael Jordan complex. He was player slash owner, and it just that is not a good situation. I love Michael Jordan as the GOAT basketball player of all time, but at the same time, we can call things out um, the way that we should, and when he's wearing those hats, it's not necessarily the best. That's why him and Barkley just now started back speaking. The Hornets um, and the Bobcats just were not good under him. He was making horrible picks. You picking, was it Cody Zeller, Frank the Tank over Giannis's and Devin Booker's? It's just been bad, bad, bad. And so people, you can look back at that time and say, if Jordan was making the decisions and he had a lot of say on who played, and even bringing in his guy Doug Collins, who had coached them with the Bulls before they got Phil Jackson. It was just a bunch of his guys, and so you could look back and say, man, that was probably not the best environment for a young, talented player, which Charles Oakley, like I said, confirmed a while ago. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till next time, peace.